Hey there and welcome to Olivia's Catastrophe. I am Olivia-Savannah and today I'm here for my third Read It Backwards video. If you don't know what Read It Backwards is, I will have a video down below and also linked up there that you can go check, which will explain the whole situation to you. For today we are reading backwards New Moon by Stephanie Meyer, and I do need to say two things first. The first of all is that the representation of Indigenous people in this series is really bad, and therefore every time I mention this video, I'll be donating to the tribe itself that Stephanie Meyer misrepresents, and I'll leave a link to that down below if you feel driven to donating yourself. And also, this video contains
spoilers.
New Moon, the second book in the series, and it's the one I've reread the least, even less than Breaking Dawn. It's the one I like the least because it's the one that has the least Edward and the least Cullens in it, and that's what I'm kind of here for with this series. I also almost DNF'd the whole Twilight saga the first time I read this series all the way through, because in this one Edward disappears, and when Edward disappeared I stopped reading. I have this thing where if my favourite characters die or disappear, I'm a lot less likely to continue in the series or in the books, which means I have to choose my favourite characters very carefully. I might have spoiled myself and then kept reading, but yeah, so it's the one I know the least about. I can't even think of a tabbing system, that's how little I know about it. So I've got 2 tabs so far. Green is going to be for Jasper, that's been running through all of my Read It Backwards, and Jasper Cullen is the best vampire. And even though the Cullens do a disappearing act in this one, I do know that Jasper features a lot in the beginning because he's the catalyst for the events that happen in this book. And then the second tab I have is yellow, and that's going to be for when Bella and Jacob have cute friendship moments, because they do have cute friendship moments in this book, and Jacob is most likeable in this book if my memory is correct. As for my 2 other colours, which are orange and pink, we're just going to wait and see which patterns reoccur. Hello, so I've read the first 50 pages, let's talk about it. The book starts off with Bella's dream, which is of her being a granny and still dating Edward, and that dream always makes me wonder why we don't get more vampire books where the vampire is significantly older than the person they fall in love with. And it starts off Bella on her overdramatic age fixation where she really worries about being older than Edward. 18 to 17 is not that big of a difference, it's not a big gap at all. Also, in Eclipse I was like, oh, Bella has a job, wow, and I was assuming that Bella got a job when Edward left because she had all of that time to herself, that she might have started to get a job. But no, in this one Bella's already got a job and she's trying to get days off for her birthday, and I was just like, wow, she must have got a job in the first book. Also in this one we get to see Bella defending her truck. I kind of love when Bella defends her truck. We don't get to see it at all in Breaking Dawn because by then she's in a different car, and in Eclipse she spends so much time being driven places by Edward that we don't get to see her defending and loving her truck, so I'm happy that we get to see her just saying like, don't hate on the truck. Then we also have our introduction into the Volturi, and it's when Edward and Bella are watching Romeo and Juliet, and I did mention that every single book Stephanie Meyer kind of focuses on one book and drives home hard that analogy between the two, and in this one we have Romeo and Juliet. I do like the play Romeo and Juliet, but I don't like that the thing they nail home in this is the lack of self-preservation, because Edward and Bella have no self-preservation whatsoever. They're always like, if he dies I'm gonna die, or if she dies I'm gonna die, and it's just too dramatic. I don't enjoy reading about this. I think I forget that the reason I don't like this book is not even just the fact that Edward's not there, it's also that when Edward is there, it's all of this lack of self-preservation, wanna die without you stuff that I don't enjoy reading about and I don't particularly care about. At one point Edward says that they want to celebrate Bella's birthday because the last real birthday they had was Emmett's birthday in 1935, and I question how could that happen, because Rosalie tells Emmett's story in Eclipse and she says that she discovered Emmett when he was dying, carried it all the way back, and then Carlisle changed him into a vampire, which means they would have had no time at all with Emmett when he is simply human, so they couldn't have celebrated Emmett's birthday in 1935. Just saying, that doesn't add up. Okay, then the whole thing happens with Bella getting a paper cut at her birthday and Jasper attacking, and it's about time that I mention two things. The first one is a thing that I should have mentioned a long time ago, but I wanted to wait until we were at this book and at this scene, and that is the fact that Jasper goes crazy when Bella gets a paper cut, and in all of the first book and also this book, Jasper is always keeping his distance from Bella because he's scared he's going to want to eat her, because Bella just smells so appetizing. However, I think that the book seems to forget that Jasper is in school. In the first book, he's in school all the time, surrounded by these delicious smelling humans, where he probably is in close contact with a lot of them by sitting next to them in class or having to work with them. So I just don't understand or don't see how they can be like, Jasper's taking precautions, Jasper can't handle being near Bella, when it's explicitly stated that Bella's appetizing smell only pertains explicitly to Edward, and therefore to Jasper she smells like any other human, and he's around all other humans all the time. The second thing I wanted to mention is how on earth are they able to hold Jasper back? When Jasper is teaching them how to fight an Eclipse, he easily outfights all of them. He knows how to outfight Edward, he knows how to outfight Emmett, and he definitely knows how to outfight, well, not Edward, but Emmett and Rosalie. So it doesn't make sense that they can so easily restrain him, especially if he's driven on getting Bella. If someone like him is set on getting their prey, he's probably always going to get it. The only reason why I think that he's so easily restrained is because while he physically wants to eat Bella, mentally he wants to not eat Bella. He's still got some of his mental grip, which is the only way they could have captured him. However, I do think it would have been interesting if we had a bit more of a fight and a bit more trouble restraining him. Then we go back to Edward not being able to be around Bella while she's injured because he has to hold his breath and he really struggles with that, and it's just a bit nice to see because in Eclipse by then he's already got it all sorted out. Bella's scent of blood doesn't bother him at all, so now he's back to being very much a vampire. I feel like in the third book and the fourth book, Edward doesn't seem like a vampire anymore just because he's so over wanting to eat Bella, but in this one we get to see him be all vampiric, and we also get to hear a bit about Edward's backstory. It's Carlisle who tells it to us, but it's nice enough to get his backstory. It's not so interesting, it doesn't really revolve around Edward himself, but it's interesting to hear a little bit more about Carlisle's backstory into why he always works at a hospital, and he's just such a good person and he's such a strong vampire if he's able to, you know, not even be attracted to blood whatsoever and just use it to help people. It just highlighted to me how amazing Carlisle truly is. And then last but not least, at the end of the part that I stopped reading at, we get to see Edward give Bella a dramatic goodbye kiss because he's decided he's going to leave Bella, but Bella doesn't know, so he just gives her like one last intense kiss, and Edward's just so dramatic like that. How many times have they had one last dramatic kiss over the Read It Backwards series, but also over the whole 4 books? So many times. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about New Moon. So Bella is given this camera and she's taking photos of everything as if she and Edward are going to be leaving together because of the problems that happened around her birthday, and it's a bit sad to see her taking all of these photos and thinking that they're going to go together, when the truth of the matter is that Edward is going to be the one who's going to be going without her. Also, the way that Bella regards herself is really so sad. She doesn't see herself as beautiful or lovable at all, and I feel like in early young adult there were lots of female characters who felt this way, and it was probably because it was a problem that a lot of female teenagers were relating to back then, and are probably still relating to, but it's kind of being told in a different way because Edward's job as her boyfriend in this series seems to be to remind her that she's beautiful all the time, and Bella never believing it. But nowadays in young adult, I feel like the characters either are very comfortable in their own skin, or if they have those doubts, they learn to get over them or accept themselves rather than needing somebody else to help them or accept them or encourage them on that journey, if that makes any sense. So I just noticed in this one that Alice disappears and never really gets to say goodbye to Bella, and there's nothing worse than going through a breakup and losing a best friend at the same time. That's just a double whammy and is extra painful. There's also some brief mentions of the children on the reservation being seen as a cult or being seen as a nuisance, and already that makes me uncomfortable. It's just another element of showing how the representation of the tribe is done badly, because those are thoughts that some people have in real life, and it's kind of being perpetuated in this book. It's misrepresentation. It's awful. I also need to highlight a moment because Charlie gets so much animosity from some people for the fact that after a couple months of Bella being depressed and not reacting to anything, he says, I'm sending her back to Jacksonville, back to Renee. And I don't think that's a sign of bad parenting. I actually would like to say that's a sign of good parenting. He's tried to do everything he can to help Bella get through it. He's given her time and space. He's been watching her carefully, and you can see that nothing is changing. Rather than letting her wallow in that and continue on the trajectory that she's on, he then says, let's try and see someone. Let's send you to someone who can help you, who can talk about your feelings. Bella immediately shuts down that path of thinking, and then Charlie says, I really don't know what to do. I want to send you to your mother, who might be able to help you more, and it's okay to be out of your depth. I really think it's healthy and okay for people to say, I don't know what to do in this situation. I'm going to refer you to or give you over to someone who can help you more. We do need to normalize being accepting when we don't know how to do something, and Charlie only wants the best for Bella, and he's accepting that he doesn't know how to give her that best treatment, and he thinks that maybe Renee knows how to do it better. I don't think that's bad parenting. I think that's a sign of good parenting. Also, Bella really does Jessica dirty when she goes to that movie with her and they watch this zombie film. The way that she treated Jessica, the way that she just ignores her or just leaves her by herself while she walks on the street, it hurts my heart. I understand why Jessica is so angry and frustrated after that. Also, we need to talk about a distinct difference between Bella chasing adrenaline and Bella just putting herself in danger. So in the situation that she's with Jessica at the beginning with the film situation and walking towards these stranger men, it's putting herself in danger. I don't like those moments. I don't like the later on what's going to be the cliff dive. I don't like any of that. I think putting yourself in danger is a bit ridiculous. However, when it's like chasing an adrenaline rush, I can understand that, and you can chase the adrenaline rush in safe ways. Go on a roller coaster, Bella. Ride some motorcycles if you consider that as a safe thing to be doing. You can get your adrenaline in safe ways. That said, I want to acknowledge that Bella is depressed in this moment and is supposed to be depressed, and I've never had depression, so I don't know what it's like to not feel anything and to be chasing after the small amount of feelings that you are feeling. I can't speak for that, so I just want to acknowledge that. And then last but not least, I've created a new tab color, which is orange, and orange is going to be for every time that Ghost Edward appears. I honestly have nothing better to tab. Also, the more I read this book, I'm 100 pages in or 500, the more I realize that I don't like this book. Do you guys have that? Do you guys have, when you have a favorite series and you love that series, but nonetheless within that series there's just one book that you just don't enjoy? That's me with New Moon. Bella and Jacob are being mechanics and they're just fixing up the bikes, and it makes me think that Jacob and Rosalie would actually be very good friends because they're both into doing whatever mechanics do if they didn't have that playful feud going on. As well as that, seeing Bella and Jacob's friendship is just so pure. They're so happy together, and it's actually the most casual and relaxed we see Bella like ever across the whole series, because in the first book she's busy trying to figure out who Edward is, and in the other ones there's just always some reason where she feels tension when she's with Edward, where she doesn't feel good enough for him, or she feels like she's making him jealous or whatever. So I feel like when it's just her and Jacob being friends, it's the most relaxed that we've seen her, even though she's still emotionally hurting. We are seeing some problematic things in terms of descriptors. We have Jacob saying that the members of the tribe are all like our land, they're all like tribe pride and protectors. They call themselves protectors, and I'm putting this because they're all quotes, but he's kind of mocking them for that, which I don't think is something somebody should be mocked for. If they're taking pride in their ancestry and their heritage and their tribe, then they're allowed to do that, and that's fine. Leah is also described as being exotic, and it's just something that we see so much. Anybody who's dark-skinned is described as exotic. It's a bit exhausting. Think of some other adjectives. There are more ways to describe someone than exotic. There's a moment where they're all round Billy's for dinner, and Seth is there, and I absolutely forgot that we get to see Seth and Leah and Jacob interacting pre-transition. I forgot that that happens, and Seth is just as cute before as he is afterwards. He's still hanging on to Jacob's every word. He's still the purest, but it's interesting to see how their perspective on Leah is just so very different. And we have the moment where Angela's talking about bear sightings with Bella's friends at the table, and it's nice to see Bella's friends interact and her kind of be a bit more involved in their lives, seeing as the Cullens are not there. The only frustrating thing about that is that now Mike's seen Bella wake up, he's like, do you want to go to a film? Do you want to maybe go on a date? And he just keeps hinting. Honestly, Bella is the best at rejecting people. She rejects Edward's marriage proposals for so long. She rejects like Mike, Tyler, Eric. She knows how to reject people, but it's just a bit exhausting. It reminds me again of how annoying Mike is, always trying to like worm his way in there. When she says no, she means no. And last but not least, Bella's talking to Angela and she mentions that it's been a year since she moved to Forks. And I'm just like, whoa, it's only been a year, which makes sense because this is only the second book. But she spent 4 months of that year, October, November, December, and January, in her depressive haze, which means that her time with Edward has been approximately 8 months of dating, probably 7 months, because I know there's at least a month where she's trying to figure him out and, you know, fitting into Forks. So her reaction is from a 7-month relationship. It is supposed to be the relationship for her, the one that like makes her life complete and all of that, but I had in my head an impression that they'd been together for much longer than just 7 months. Even though 7 months, I'm not saying like your 7-month relationship is not that deep, but I'm just saying it's only been 7 months. So I've mentioned in previous books that Edward and Bella have their field that they always go to and it's really their place, but Bella is now searching for this field with Jacob and she mentions that she's only ever been to the field once, which is probably at the end of Twilight. So I'm starting to think that maybe they don't spend that much time in the field. They don't go to the field in Breaking Dawn if I remember correctly, or maybe it opens in the field? I don't even remember, but I know that they go to the field once in Eclipse and I'm pretty sure they go once in Twilight, which means they only go to the field thrice, or maybe 4 times, maybe at the end of this book. So they actually don't end up in the field as much as I remember them being in the field. And while Bella and Jacob are looking for this field, Jacob jokes that maybe something will eat Bella while she's out there, and Bella's like, oh, maybe it will happen, and they're joking about it, which I guess is foreshadowing because I know that eventually Laurent is going to turn up in the field and actually try and eat Bella. So that joke is like a little bit of foreshadowing. Then Bella goes on her awkward 3-way date with Jacob, Bella and Mike because everybody else cancels, and that scene is so awkward where they're both in the cinema and like Jacob's waiting for Bella to hold his hand and Mike's also waiting, and the like animosity that Mike and Jacob have towards each other, it's literally like the love triangle that happens before the love triangle with Edward and Jacob. But it's already like a bit of a shame because already the best friendness with Jacob, it's still there essentially, but Jacob's already been like, oh, I fancy Bella, so it's already shifted. Like their friendship didn't have as much friendship time where it's purely just friendship as I thought. Already it's morphed into Jacob fancying Bella and Bella not fancying him back, but Bella still holds his hand a lot and is still like being all cozy up to Jacob, and she's again having the thoughts such as I shouldn't be this friendly with Jacob because it means something different to Jacob, and at this point I've so had enough. I know this is the first time that we're seeing Bella have these thoughts about how she needs to put more distance between her and Jacob. However, because I'm reading the series backwards, I've seen these thoughts for 3 consecutive books and I'm kind of fed up of hearing about it. Just do it! If you are so torn up that it lasts 3 books, which is about, I don't know, 800 pages total, just do it. Stop complaining about it and just do it. Also, in this one, Jacob is weirdly perceptive. He notices that Bella doesn't like music because it reminds her of Edward. He notices that hearing the name Edward or Cullen does affect Bella, so he never uses those names. He says like the other one or just cuts himself off before he says Edward's name. And in the other books, Jacob doesn't come across as that observant to me, just because he's always pushing his own wants, he's always pushing his own narrative of I want Bella to realise that she loves me, or I want Bella to realise that the wolves are just as strong as the vampires, and he's so busy pushing his own narrative in all the other books, the other 2 essentially, that he loses that observation and actually kind of caring element. I know that he still cares for Bella, but in this one he seems to be so much more caring and so much more attentive than he is in the other 2 books. But it's the first time that I noticed that Laurent is basically there doing the job that Riley is supposedly doing in the third book, but he's doing it himself and not doing a very good job of it. I also want to note that everything Jacob does is basically an echo of what Edward does, but in a different, slightly different order. So let's go. Jacob tries to stay away from her to keep her safety. Jacob decides he likes her too much to keep away. Jacob comes in through the window at night. Jacob has her guess the secret. But in Jacob's case, everything happens quite a bit faster. Also, when Bella is seeing the turmoil that Jacob is in about recently becoming a werewolf, she's like, why don't we just run away together, you and me, just run away from it all. And it was just such a teenagery and such a young adult thought. Like, that's a thought that I had countless times as a teenager that I couldn't help but smile. Like, that's young adult to its core when it really truly just sounds like a teenager. Honestly, I read the line, no, it's not that you're a wolf, that's fine, and it cracked up so much. Literally, you only get comedy gold like this in the Twilight Saga, where the writing is just either so bad or just so outrageous that you can't help but laugh. Also, it's a wolf thing. Can I just say that it's a marvel that the wolves have been able to keep themselves secret for this long? Jacob exchanged like 3 words with Paul in front of Bella, and then boom, Paul just transforms into a wolf right then and there, and then Jacob immediately transforms into a wolf. It should not be this secretive. Like, honestly, half of Forks must know their secret at this point if that's all it takes to set them off into transformation. I know in the beginning it's hard because they're all testy and it's more emotional for them and all of that jazz in the beginning, but still, if this is how it really goes in the beginning, and as many people have been seeing them around as others imply, it makes more sense that more people know the secret because they just can't keep it to themselves. Next things next, I was smiling so hard at the pack banter, especially when we see that moment with Jared and Embry when Bella has just, you know, witnessed the wolf transformation as being driven back. The banter that them two have is just so cute, and then the moment where they go back to Emily and they're all together. Sometimes forget that the pack is also a found family within the series. However, we spend so little time with the pack that we can forget that not only are the Cullens a found family, but the pack is also a found family. And like the time that we have with the Cullens, it's underrated and not that there when we can see, you know, that element of friendship, which is a bit of a shame because I would love more of that, but Stephanie Meyer was busy doing her thing. But also, I just need to mention that this book is so slow. I'm on page 300 or 500 and we've literally only just found out that Jacob was a werewolf. So essentially all that's happened is breakup, Jacob's a werewolf, and now we're getting this like Victoria plot line, which I don't think lasts that long because I'm sure Bella's about to jump off a cliff any moment. Hello, I finished reading New Moon, so let's talk about it because I read 200 pages last night and I have a lot to say. So first of all, Bella pretty much made up her mind that she was going to be with Jacob and just tried to give Jacob as much love as she was physically capable of giving him, and I didn't realise that Team Jacob was literally that close to winning. I forgot that she actually made up her mind to truly give Jacob and give in to Jacob. I just completely forgot that. And we also have a moment where Alice turns up and then Charlie's talking to Alice about how terrible and awful it was, truly was, when Bella was first in her depression, and it broke my heart to read that. And Charlie really did his best, and it's just a bit, I can't imagine being a parent and just feeling so lost and not knowing what to do, what to give their child, what they can best do to help them. And it made me a bit emotional to read that because I think I've probably reread this series countless times but never really focused on that scene and that moment. I just realised that the reason that Charlie is so angry and dislikes Edward so much in Eclipse is because he's seen Bella so broken after that breakup, and he really dislikes Edward for that reason. Like, I knew that he really disliked Edward, but I thought it was because Bella suddenly disappears and goes to Italy and doesn't tell Charlie, but that's not actually the reason why Charlie is angry at Edward. It's because he broke his daughter's heart in the first place, and that makes perfect sense, and I would be just as angry as Charlie is in the third book. Then we get the whole scene with the Volturi, and I have to say I kind of love Jane. I kind of love the way Jane acts, how she's so regal and royal, but at the same time just so angry when things don't work, like when her power doesn't work for Bella. And the films get a lot of things wrong, but they do get quite a few things right, and one of the things that they got right was Dakota Fanning for that role, or whoever plays that role, because they played Jane so well and personified her so well. It was absolutely perfect. I also never really paid that many attention to the other Volturi, such as Marcus and Dimitri, and what their powers were, so it completely took me by surprise that Marcus's power is the ability to see relationships. That's such a cool and unique power that I don't actually see in many books where people have powers, so it's pretty cool to note that, but again, it doesn't really come into the series much. I have to say, the whole scene with the Volturi is great. I love the Volturi because Arrow is just a brilliant job of being bizarre but also scary but also royal and regal, and I can't imagine being Bella and just hearing the frenzy as they're eating, but she's right underground, and all the people, like seeing the innocent people beforehand. That scene is actually quite chilling, and again, I feel like because the Twilight Saga is supposed to be a paranormal romance, people can forget that it can have quite chilling and scary scenes. Also, when we're with the Volturi, Arrow is talking to Edward as if he is like controlling Bella, as if Bella is a pet to him, which you could say in Eclipse that does happen because Edward is so controlling, but Edward just gets fed up of this talking about Bella as if Bella isn't there, and at one point he's like, if you've got questions for Bella, just ask her. And I was like, yes, you tell them that Bella is an independent person who can talk for herself. I was also paying a lot closer attention at the end of the book because I don't know why, but I think I love Edward a lot more than I give him credit for. When Edward isn't there, I don't like the book, and then the moment that Edward comes back into the series, I'm like, actually, I'm enjoying the last 100 pages of New Moon a lot more than any of the other bits of New Moon, so really I'm more of a softie for Edward than I think. And because I was paying more attention towards the end, just because Edward was there, I noted in her writing that Stephanie Meyer spends a lot of time getting Bella to say like, Edward's breath is so sweet, and she just keeps describing Edward's breath as a sweet fragrance, and I'm sorry, I've never been attracted to someone's breath before. That just strikes me as a bit too far. Also, when Edward is reunited with the rest of the Cullen family, he calls Esme mum, and that just, my heart. I know they're always talking about how Carlisle is equivalent to their dad and Esme is equivalent to their mum, but it's so rare that we actually get to see Edward say like, sorry dad or sorry mum, as in actually calling them mum and dad. So when I read that, my heart melted a little bit. Also, can I just say I'm completely 100% done with them forcing the Romeo and Juliet analogy down my throat. This book does it so much, and it just, I'm fed up of it. She really digs into it deeper than she does with any of the other books that she tries to parallel, which might be another reason why I don't particularly like this one as much. I love Romeo and Juliet, but even I am sick of Romeo and Juliet by the end of reading this. Bella's talking about not wanting to grow old and still dating Edward, and I was just, what if she grew to be like 90 and she was about to die and then Edward bit her, which led me to thinking, where are the granny vampires? Honestly, like, we see Jane, who's like practically a child who's a vampire, and we see adult vampires, and we even see Arrow and everybody else in the Volturi who are like adults, but they're just old vampires, but we have not seen like any vampiric grannies and granddads running around, and I'm curious to know where they are. Do they get younger if they're bitten? Because they've got to be somewhere. So Edward is trying to convince Bella that he does indeed love her, and then at some point, right before Bella goes to the Cullens to have a vote for her mortality, she goes, hang on a second, I'm having an epiphany. And I just clearly had a memory of my 12-year-old self reading this book and not knowing what epiphany meant, and I read it and then I looked it up in the dictionary, and then I was like, oh, that's an epiphany. And I can just remember running around, and every time I had an idea, I'd be like, hold on, I had an epiphany. And I just felt so like on top of the world because I knew what epiphany meant when some of my friends didn't, and I used it way too much. This series has so many memories for me. We also have another Cullen family moment because right before the vote is put towards the family of whether Bella should become a vampire or not, Edward's like, I've got an idea to thwart the Volturi, and it's a very dangerous idea, and it's such a found family moment when like all of the guys, aka Edward, Jasper and Emmett, are like, yeah, let's do this, nice plan, and all of the girls, Rosalie, Bella and Alice, are like, no, why are they so dumb? And it's just a little bit cute. And then the vote happens. So in reading Eclipse, in my read it backwards, I was like, what? Bella has a deal with Carlisle? But then I do remember that this vote scene happens, especially because the film drives home this vote scene for Bella's mortality. So basically I kind of know all the events that are going to happen in the Twilight Saga, but I forget to link them up with the consequences that the event has. So I knew the vote was happening, and I knew that Carlisle was going to change it after graduation in the third book, but I totally forgot that it's because of the vote that the other thing is going to happen, which shows that I can be very forgetful. Okay, Edward's proposal happens in this book, and I really was trying to remember when Edward proposed to Bella, and I couldn't remember. I thought it was in a field at some point, especially in the later books, because she keeps denying him, and I was like, where's the proposal? When does that happen? It happens at the end of New Moon, literally just after they were reunited from a breakup. But Edward's proposal is just a little bit cute. I also need to mention that Edward throws out that he's 110. I don't know why I'm always shocked by the ages, but I think this is the first time in the Read It Backwards series that I get to fully see how old Edward is. Like, you know that it's sometime around the Spanish influenza, but he's like, well, I'm 110, and I'm just like, you're so old. And last but not least, in the Read It Backwards for Eclipse, I was like, why is Jacob so against Bella? I was trying to think of what conversation they had to lead to them not being good friends by the beginning of the third book, and it's basically just as simple as Bella's back with Edward, Edward is a vampire, werewolves and vampires don't mix. So there was no complicated answer to that. It was just because Jacob feels like he can't be friends with Bella, who is a vampire, and knowing that Bella eventually wants to become one as well. So there was no complication for that. That is all of my thoughts for New Moon. Like, my tabs, there's so few. I didn't really have that much to tab. I didn't even use my fourth colour. I just wasn't really feeling this book, but I'm all the way through it, and now I get to go on to my favourite one of the series, which is actually the first one. That is my favourite one, and I cannot wait to read that one and then start reading backwards another series. So if I had to rate this one, I would rate it 3 stars, just because it's not really the worst thing ever. Edward does come back in the end. Edward's there for a little bit in the beginning, but it's just not entertaining for me, it's not interesting for me, and I prefer to skip over it in my rereads. So that's that. So if you made it this far, please leave in the comment section down below the wolf emoji, or type out the word wolf so that I know that you watched the whole thing. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know in the comment section down below. Did you remember any of these moments? Do you have any thoughts, agrees, disagreements with me? Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Hit the subscribe button if you want to see more, and don't forget to hit that notification bell to be updated every time I have a new video. And you know what they say, onwards and upwards. Excelsior.